keep on attending the sessions actively. Keep on attending the sessions actively so that you will get the maximum benefit from this workshop. Now, today we are going to start with the session with regarding media. In this, you will get to learn how to prepare animation, how to write storyboard, what are the steps of preparing animation. You are going to have a look on variety of media which can be used to convey what we want to convey that information effectively. Only conveying the information is not sufficient. We should convey it efficiently. We should convey it impactfully so that the purpose of that resource is fulfilled. And for doing so, we are having an expert with us, Mr. Ayush Nagpal. Mr. Ayush Nagpal, are you here?
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, sir. We welcome you in today's workshop. And Mr. Ayush Nagpal is a filmmaker and media expert, and he is going to help you. He's going to tell you that what all softwares are there which can be used, and how to use those softwares, how you can build your own resources. That is what you are going to know. You are going to experience today in first session. So over to Mr. Ayush Nagpal.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ayush. Is my voice clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. So I'm just going to share my screen. Just 1 second, please. Yes. So welcome to the spectacular world of animation, and today we'll be discussing a lot about animation and a lot of possibilities about animation. And as you all know, animation is something, it is very interesting, and there are so many different things that can be done about it. What we'll basically be learning would be just a couple of things that very quickly I'll tell you. So we'll be learning about there's going to be a short introduction to animation, why animation is required, what exactly animation is, different types of animations, steps to design an educational animation. We'll be focusing slightly on the educational side. Then we'll be learning about pre-production, storyboarding, little bit about shot taking, and a question answer session. But before we start, just a few things that I would really request you all to participate and raise your hands and feel free to interrupt me whenever you want, right? But as long as it doesn't, disturb everyone else. So it will be better if you can raise your hands, you can use the chat option, and always, feel free to add to the knowledge, and let's arrive at answers together, and let's learn something new, and it will be a good experience for me also, right? Now, before we start, can I show you a small video? It is a small video about 2-3 minutes, having different types of animation films, some of which have been done by our team also, and this will help us understand what we are getting into and what are the different possibilities, and then we'll also be discussing them and trying to understand what are the different types and how each of them can be dealt with, right? So I'm just going to play this video. Just watch it very carefully, then we'll discuss it, right? Here.
एक समय की बात है, करता था गब्बर आराम, तभी वहां पे पुलिस आ धमकी करने उसका काम तमाम। सरदार अब आपका खेल खत्म।
When you choose to do something which benefits everyone around you, it begins to show. And the kindness spreads.
मुश्किल में हो पशु मालिक, अश्वों पे हो अत्याचार। ओ मुश्किल में हो पशु मालिक, अश्वों पे हो अत्याचार। सुलझाने हर उलझन उनकी आ जाता वहाँ अश्व कुमार। अश्व कुमार आया, अश्व कुमार, अश्व कुमार आया, अश्व कुमार। 15th August 1947, midnight. India awakes to a new life of freedom. But 2 centuries of colonial rule had decayed India from within, leaving the country ridden with poverty and hunger. Our founding fathers set out to wipe every tear from every eye. They needed a pole star, that single focal point to make India modern and progressive. Something that captured the uniqueness of the chaotic but eternally hopeful nation.
Okay, so did you all see it? Uh, Now here what we saw, there were different types of animations. Okay. Now, yes, please. Is it something somebody wants to add? Can I request you all to mute yourself unless you really have something to add to? Thanks. Maybe administrators can also just help us there. Right. So we were discussing there were different types of animations that we just saw. The first one that we saw, now this is a typographic based animation. Okay, we'll be discussing it in a little more detail little later. Typographic means this deals with numbers, characters, how text has been typed, which is called, has been changed to tell the story. The next one was this is example of a 2D animation. Okay, this is 2D animation. Then this one is a 2D animation, but it has got 2D objects, but the environment is three-dimensional. It's a 3D environment and 2D objects. This is a very unique kind of animation. And this is again a 2D animation and another 2D animation with some lights and all these things. You see how these lights work. They are called FX. Okay, and we'll be discussing all of these in little more detail. And what we saw after that was an example of just 1 second please. What we saw after that was an example of a 3D animation. So there are different possibilities of what can be done, but what we'll be learning in this session are going to be the basic. What we'll be focusing on will be the basic rules of making those animations and rules of telling the storytelling through animation. That is what we'll be basically focusing on. Okay. Thing is that as you know, somebody before me very beautifully said that it's all about sharpening your tools. It's all about learning new things and getting ready to do things which have not been done. And it is same in the field of animation like any other field. The the softwares, the tools, they keep getting updated. What was what was the main, workhorse of a tool 5 years back is no longer used. So it is, rather than focusing on the tools, rather than focusing on specific, softwares, it is always best to understand the basic principles which can then be applied to any kind of animation. Now, before we move ahead, let's just understand, is my screen visible to everyone? Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Let's just understand, why do we need animation? Okay. Why is animation required? Any examples, anything from why don't you guys just tell us in the chat something on what you feel, why is animation required? Anyone? Yes. So it brings life to concepts, it evokes students' interest, it makes it more interesting, it is to present content more easy and in an attractive way. There are, yes, it catches the attention of younger generation. Yes, so right. Yes, to communicate ideas, to make the concepts interesting. They are all of them are perfect and right answers. So I'll tell you what, when I asked myself what is the advantage of animation, this is what the answers that I could come up with. It lightens the mood. It lightens the mood because of association, because of whatever we see, whatever we have. Most of the animations, they are light-hearted, but there is no rule as such. But it does help to lighten the mood. It attracts attention easily. When you see something which is slightly different from reality, it it helps you to pay attention. It makes you pay attention. Then, this is a very interesting advantage that we have. It depicts difficult to shoot topics. Now, for example, if there's a surgical procedure somewhere, when you're teaching, doctors, for example, if there's a surgical procedure, it is not always feasible to get a patient, or to perform that very procedure that we want to teach. So it is helpful to use a animation. Then animation also helps us to depict fantasy based situations. So when we say fantasy based situations, they are like, I would like to say, they are a higher reality. It's not unreal, it is just a higher reality. Why it is real? Because it exists in our mind. So anything, as Picasso has famously said, anything that exists in your mind is real. Anything you can imagine is real. So it helps you to communicate those concepts which don't exist in the world. And then finally, it helps us to tell abstract concepts. When you're talking about, for example, if you're trying to tell different types of management, or some physics concept you're trying to tell, so it is easy to tell through an animated chart, through an animated table. And those kind of animations are actually called infographics. We'll briefly be discussing about them also. So these are the advantages of animation. Okay. Now, before we start and before we get into how to make an animation, let's just understand what animation actually is. How can there be a definition of animation? What does differentiate how can we differentiate animation from something else? Any inputs here? Please let us know, what do you think is animation? Anything? Anyone? What animation is? How can animation be defined? Any inputs from anyone? We've all been seeing animation. We all know what animation is, but if we were to precisely define, yes,
One,
it, it is moving objects.
yeah.
Yes, that's a very interesting way of putting it. I'll come back to this one, sir. I'll come back to this moving objects one. It's an art, yes. Then where real people are not needed to enact. Yes, that is so right. It is about a virtual situation. It is about manipulation. Anything manipulation is animation, or all animations are manipulated. It is easy to understand and interesting. Yes, but I'm asking, what is animation? It is 3D visualization, replicating of ideas in visual form. Yes, that's an abstract way of putting it. Abstract way of putting an abstract thing. That's really interesting. Still images in moving manner. See, this is why I like to work with academicians, because there are so many different ideas and it just helps us understand. So I'll tell you, uh, see, one of the things that uh, was said earlier was moving objects. I told I'll come back to it. Now, tell me, is there anything really moving in an animation? You are sitting in front of a laptop or a computer or a phone, and there's something moving. But is the screen really moving? Think. Now, what do you understand by animation? When there's nothing moving, you are not moving, the screen is not moving, then what is animation? It's not that simple. So, animation is, some people say it is cartoons, it is graphics, it is moving pictures, but is there anything moving? Let's come to it. Animation is a method in which figures are manipulated to appear as moving images, right? Manipulation, somebody had very correctly said. So, figures are manipulated to appear as moving images. Images are not really moving. Mind it, this is something that we really need to understand. There's nothing moving, right? When there's nothing moving, then why do we feel things are moving? Let's come to that. There's a very interesting concept that we had all learned in our school, and some people like me might have forgotten it. It is persistence of vision. Okay. Now, what is persistence of vision? We all know this is what our eye looks like. This is the human eye. There's a lens here, there's a cornea, and there's a retina. Retina is the screen on which images are formed. So anything that is in front of the eye, there's a convex lens which bends the light and forms an image on the retina. Whatever comes in front of our eye forms an image. The image then goes through the optical nerve, it goes to the brain. But there's a little bit of time lapse. When the image is formed, it doesn't automatically go there, it doesn't immediately go there. There's a little bit of time lapse. And during that time, this image is neither permanent nor temporary, right? It just stays there just for a while before it gets replaced by a new image of something which has come in front of the eye. Now, what if we were to replace this image by another one before this image has actually vanished from our eye? I hope I'm not making it very confusing. It's something that we have already all of us have learned, but please feel free if I succeed to confuse you, right? So, so when whatever comes in front of the eye forms the image. If that image is replaced before it goes to the brain, a new image comes, then that picture appears to be moving. Here, look at it this way. Now, supposing we were to show an image. Now, there's a screen. We show a small circular thing here. Now, and when this image goes, it is just vanishing. We remove it slightly and we show a different image which is just next to it. What happens in our brain? The first image is kind of vanishing, the new one has come. Our brain, which is wired to make sense of the world, it just puts it all together. The images go to the through the optical nerve to the brain, and brain puts them together and it imagines that the circle has actually moved. If we keep repeating this principle, we have an animation. So animation is nothing more than just repetition of this principle, that using persistence of vision to change the images slightly and quickly, and making them feel, as somebody said, manipulating them to make them feel as if they are moving. This is animation in simplest words. Okay. Now, this principle, very interesting thing I'm going to tell you. This principle has been with us even before the advent of electronics. Even before, somebody has said, "No, sir. Is there something I can help you with? Is something that you're not feeling? You're not understanding? Please let me know if there's anything you want to ask. If you can just be specific with the question, I'll try to answer it. Yeah. So, uh, thing is that we are moving things and they feel like moving. We are replacing them with something which is slightly modified, and it feels that the thing has moved. Now this principle has been used. This is used in television, in films, and everywhere. But this is been with us even before the TV came. Right? It has been with us surprisingly for more than 500 years. And I'm going to show you what. Any guesses what I'm going to talk about? Where do you think this principle is used other than electronics, other than televisions, mobile phones, or movies, or anything which has anything to do with camera? Any guesses where this principle is used? Cartoons are films only. Yeah, in a way. I'll show you. Just watch this small video. Puppets, yes, but puppets are actually moving. They are not appearing to be moving, unless you look at it philosophically. Video games are also electronics. Films are electronics in a way. Let's come to this. Let's come to it. Bioscope, that is close. That is close. Bioscope is very close to what I'm going to show you. Watch this, then we'll talk. Just look at it very carefully. What do you see? There's an image, and next to the image, do you see this thumb-like thing? It's actually a moving finger. If you just look at it carefully, it will make sense. This is a flip book. Okay, so did you see this was a flip book? Now, what is a flip book? Now, what was really happening? It was pretty easy to see, but just so that just in case somebody missed it. So there are on every page there's a sketch. There's a sketch and it has been painted, and there's a sketch on the very next page also. Now, the sketches on each page, they are just slightly different, and one just is supposed to flip the book, and it looks like there is a movement. This is animation in the simplest possible form, where there is no animation, there is no electronics involved, there is no camera involved, there's nothing else is required. It's just very basic. One just needs to make a book and draw. It is that simple, right? But did you notice there was something else also? Other than these sketches, there was something very, very interesting. Oh my God, it has again got stuck. Just 1 second, please. So I was saying there was something also. If you can also tell us about this in chat, what do you think was there other than animation which made it look interesting? Other than the images, was there something else also? Did you notice something other than uh, the interesting images that we saw?
Some participants have said sound effects.
Yes, yes, so right. There was sound. So we'll be talking about sound also. Sound is people tend to you have already learned learned about one session. Can somebody please turn off the mic? Just make sure that all your mics are closed unless there's something really interesting you're telling. Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. So I was saying you already learned about sound. There was a session I was told, and people tend to neglect sound when making films. But sound is interestingly 50% of your content. Have you ever looked at it that way? People don't look at it that way. It's so interesting. Sound is 50% of your content. How amazing. Right? So now let's move to the next chapter, which is types of animation. Now we've learned what animation is. We've learned what animation in the simplest form is, how what all can be done with animation. Now let's see what are the different types of animations. We have already seen examples of them. There's 2D animation, there's 3D animation, and there is new media. New media will be discussing very, very little about this. This is about augmented reality and virtual reality. These are, we'll be coming to them little later. But let's just talk about 2D animation and 3D animation now, right? Now, what exactly is 2D animation? 2D animation deals with two dimensions. Now, as we all know, dimension is what is dimension? Now, all our maths and physics people they would find it very, very elementary. For the rest of us, animation is the thing is the one can look at it as the degree of freedom that an object has. Supposing there is a point and it was to move. Supposing the point cannot move at all. This is just abstract mathematics I'm talking. If the point cannot move at all, we say it is in a zero dimension. If the point can move only in a line, it can either move ahead or it can come back. For example, if there was a train, going from Calcutta to Guwahati. Now there's a train, it can either move towards Guwahati or it can move towards Calcutta. It cannot leave the track. Now that is one dimension. Right? Supposing there was it could move in a plane. Supposing there was a person who's walking, he can move left to right, he can move front to back. He's moving in a plane, something like the way the ant works. Now that is 2D animation, 2D two-dimensional structure, where things move from left to right and they move front to back. And then there is supposing one could also fly. Supposing there was a bird, it could move on the land, it could move from front to back, left to right. And what if it could also fly? Now that is the third dimension also. I hope this is not I've not made it very, very difficult. Yeah, just hang on. Yes. So this is the concept of dimension. Now, any animation, we were talking about 2D animation. I hope this is clear. Animation is this dimension thing is clear, right? Now, this is pretty basic actually. So, what is 2D animation? 2D animation is when it involves things which don't have depth, things which are not moving from this, they are only moving in a plane. For example, anything that is happening on a screen, on a land, on a floor, and the object itself is also stored as a flat object in the computer. When these two things are met, then we can call it a 2D animation. For example, some examples of 2D animation that we saw earlier was this is a shot from the film that we saw in the beginning. Now, if you look at it carefully, there is this donkey and there's a man and there's some background. Now, although we see that there's a sense of depth, there are people who are standing behind the donkey, there's a person standing in front of the donkey, but actually there is no depth. They are all of them all of them are only in one, they are all in the same plane. Okay, all of them, they are in the same plane. And if we were to ask you, if the viewer wanted to see, supposing they wanted to see the other side of the donkey, I would say there is no other side, it has never been made, it is just a plane. So that is 2D animation. Another example of 2D animation is this. Here, all of these things, all of these people, they are all in a single plane. Although we may feel that somebody, this constable is actually standing behind the inspector, or this fire is front of the inspector, but no, they are all in the same plane, and they are, all of them are actually flat. There is no depth. This is just an illusion being created by following the rules of vanishing point and rules of drawing and sketching, that through which we are creating an illusion of depth, but there is actually no depth. Okay. Now, what is 3D animation? So this was 2D animation. What is 3D animation? 3D animation is when it involves moving things in a three-dimensional space. Okay, we just understood what a three-dimensional space is. We just understood what a three-dimensional character is. So anything which is moving in a which has got a length, breadth, and height, it is stored as a three-dimensional character in the computer, and it can also move in these three dimensions. Now, whenever these two conditions are met, it becomes a 3D animation. Let's just look at one example of 3D animation, and then it will be clear here. Okay, so here when we see this boy, you see, when we see his face and when we see him, he's got not just a circular the way his head is has been stored in the computer, it has got a sense of depth also. And then there is a light which is falling, and when the light is falling on it, the light is interacting with his face, and as a result, there are some parts of the face which are bright and some parts which are dark. And this is what is creating the illusion of depth. So, although this illusion can be created in a 2D animation also, but here, all of these things, they are taken care of by the computer. We don't have to manually do that. But there are some things that we need to do. We'll talk about them just in a little later. So, any doubts about till now? Any doubts on 2D animation, 3D animation till now? So, yeah, here. So, there is, if there are no doubts, I'll just move on. Okay. So, there's yet another way. So, 2D and 3D was one way to classify animation. There's yet another way to classify animation, which is from the point of view of its content. So, from the point of view of content, we can either have a fiction-based or a character-based animation, where there's a story being followed, where we are telling there's something happening, there are people talking, people moving. And there can be an infographic based animation, which is non-fiction, which has got concepts, which has got text moving and concepts. Now let's just look at one example of an infographic animation, and then we'll just talk about how to make an animation, steps towards making an animation. Just very quickly, let's talk about one infographic animation here. Yeah, sorry. Just one second. Now here, although there are objects which are moving, but this is more about concept. There is no story as such. It may or may not have story actually, but there is no story as such. It's about things which are moving. It's about how pollution is increasing or how global warming is increasing. So these kind of animations, they can be called infographic based animations. Okay. Now let's move on. Let's move to the next thing, which is how an animation is made. We'll be talking about what is called the animation pipeline. Okay. Now, before we move on, I'll just quickly wanted to tell you. You see, animation is not like writing a poem. It's not like making a painting. It is slightly more complex. There are people who are required. There's a team. It's a team thing. A lot of people their services have to be taken to make it. So therefore, it is very important that everyone who is working, they work in sync. Therefore, it is very important that what we have to make, we are very clear of that. So that is where, so when we look at it that way, it just little bit of project planning terms, they come into it. For example, we can actually divide all of it into three parts. There's pre-production, production, and post-production. Okay. In the pre-production stage, what we are basically doing is we are basically deciding what we want to go, what we want to do. Just as we have to, if we have to go for a holiday, we have to first decide where we are going, whether we are going on bus or on a flight or on a car, or whether we are walking. So those things, everybody has to be clear about that. And for that, these are very pretty basic things, but they are extremely important. Things like concept note, things like script. Then from the script, we come to character design. We have to design the characters. The characters. So supposing it's a fiction based. We had just learned about this character based, fiction based animation. So if it's a character based animation, it is important that the characters are designed. Here, one can just design any kind of character, but I would really suggest that we go for characters which are, we keep in mind who we are speaking to. We keep in mind what their expectations are, what their level of education is. If we are speaking to, kids, it would be different types of characters. If we are speaking to adults, we have to treat them with, we have to respect their knowledge and build upon that. So things like those. Then from character design, we come to screenplay. Screenplay is dividing the story or dividing what we are telling into shots, and from there we make a small comic kind of a thing which is called storyboard. Storyboard is to put everyone else, the entire production team, on the same page, so that everybody understands what we are basically trying to achieve. That is making a storyboard. So once your pre-production is completed, then we come to the production stage. So when we come to the production stage, you have to design the scene first. Scene is the background. If you were to look at this scene, the scene would consist of these mountains, the this cliff in the big in the front, the sky. All of these are scene design. Okay. Then from the scene design, we come to characters and we animate them. We would make the characters, we would place the characters, we would animate each of them. For example, somebody's hand would be moving, somebody's neck would be moving, somebody would be getting up. So all of those things, they are character animations. Each of them will have to be done separately. From there, we come to secondary animations. Now, secondary animation is, when a character moves and it does what we want it to move, when what we want it to do. For example, this policeman, when he would, put a gun on the head of this character, his other hand would also slightly move. His structure would also move. His neck would also move. These are the things that will make him look real. If we don't do that, then he would seem very, very robotic. So we have to look at him, we have to make him look like a human. So we just need to understand how a human moves, And this also requires, there's something that one has to do when one is not making a film, when one is just sitting, and when one is, walking in a, or going in a bus or anywhere, one has to observe, one has to keep observing how people move, and that is what helps us in animation. So these are the secondary animations that you have to add. And then there are background animations. So by background animations, what we mean is, things like birds, things like clouds, some grass might move, you know, the fire might move, the smoke. So these things, they would make the scene, become real. Otherwise, it will all look very, very. Everybody will be very, very, on their own. So they have to be all made a part of that universe, and that universe has to be made. This is background animations. So when we have made scene design, then we have made characters, then we have made secondary animations, then we have made background animations. Then we need to put it all together and tell the computer to play it together in its memory and record it. And that process is called compositing. So compositing is when all of these things, they come together, and computer just plays them in a computer in a together, and then it records it, and then it becomes one clip, one film, so to say. That is called compositing. I'm not talking about the softwares here, because softwares, you've been told also, and we'll be just briefly we'll be discussing about some of the softwares. But what I'm trying to tell you is the basic principles. Okay. So once you're done with compositing, then comes the post production. In post production, what we have to do, we start with the sound. We play each of these shots and we record sounds on it. The sounds, sometimes they are recorded by, there's a scratch animation also. Scratch recording. Scratch recording is rough recording, which has not been done by a artist, but it has only been done to get the timing of animation right. But then once we have done, then finally it is recorded by a sound artist, by somebody who is an actor. Once that is done, then all of these single shots, they are put together and they are edited. Edited is when the shots, they come together and they create meaning. And there are different types of shots, different types of magnifications of shots. When they come together, they create specific meanings, and there is a whole grammar to it. All of that process is called editing. Then we add sound effects, we add music, and then finally we do what is called the mastering. Mastering is creating the master copy of the video, which is the final copy, which will be there's a term called exporting. Is my sound very low? Somebody has just said that my sound.
No, sir, actually, I was also wondering. So, ma'am, Miss Falguni, you can increase volume of your system because it is clearly audible, whatever sir is talking about.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. So, so this was the 2D animation pipeline. Now let us just, before moving to the 3D animation, let's just look at it through the lens of one film. Okay. So we had seen in the beginning, we had seen the first, when we saw the animation, there were some horse animations. So they were taken from a series called Ashwa Kumar. This was made for, Ashwa is in Hindi, it means the horse. So Ashwa Kumar was a character made for telling, the communities which are working with horses, to tell them about how to manage horses well. So when this was made, they were, now we are talking about character design here, that we just learned, character design that I just spoke of. So there are different types of, characters that were decided, that were planned, and there was some focus groups were also shown. So from the community, there were a group of 10 people or 20 people. They were shown what the character would look like, what they feel about him, what are the features that should be added, that should be removed. So all of these things were done, and then there was some mixing and matching done, and then we had arrived on this character. So this was a character that everybody felt had perfect balance of what the community expects the character to be. They would like to, he was inspiring confidence in them, they would like to learn from him, yet he was not very, very different. He was not For example, these shoes, we had earlier thought that horse riding, shoes would inspire them, but the inputs that we got that, because these were all rural communities, they live in villages. So, they don't wear shoes at all, or they would wear very, very basic, slippers. So although they are very active with horses, but they don't wear shoes. So shoes were not inspiring confidence. So we removed them, but we still wanted him to look. We wanted to tell them something which is correct. So we came up with these kind of shoes. So there are decisions like these that take place when we are deciding a character. From character design, we come to the script. Now, script is, I'll show you what the script might look like. There are things which one has to, one has to uh, understand. Basically, what one has to understand is this one is in Hindi. You'll have to excuse me for that. I don't have it in any other language. But what I'm trying to tell you is that, see, in this script, there are there are some instructions, right? All these yellow portions, they are instructions, and then there are some dialogues. So there's a person called Hassan. He is saying a dialogue. He's saying, क्या सोच में पड़ा है हीरा, यहाँ तो एक से बढ़कर एक ही घोड़े हैं, देख ले अपनी पसंद का कोई. So basically somebody is trying to so there's a horse fair, there's an animal fair. So we have actually defined, we have I'll just read it out, then I'll show you how it actually got enacted. It says, uh, it is in Hindi, I'll try to translate it also. इट सेज, एक गांव में के पास एक पशु मेला लगा है, जहां चारों ओर जानवर बंधे हैं. तमाम लोग आ जा रहे हैं. कहीं लाउडस्पीकर में प्रचार चल रहा है. चारों ओर लोगों और जानवरों की आवाज़ें आ रही हैं. वहीं मेले के एक कोने में बैठे दो लोग बात कर रहे हैं. So what it says is that there's an animal fair which is being organized, and on all over it there are horses all around. There are people coming and going, and on in at some corner there could be one loudspeaker also. There's somebody who is trying to sell something through the loudspeaker, and there are people all around this. And in that fair, there are two people sitting in one corner and they are talking. What they are talking? They are talking about buying a horse. Then eventually, somebody comes who tells them that, when you want to buy a horse, why don't you ask me? I am the right person. He's actually slightly he's a funny character, and he tells them that you can ask me. And finally, our hero comes, who actually tells them what to look for in when one is trying to buy a horse. Okay. Now, when we have a strip like this, it gets converted to storyboard like this. Now, what the scriptwriter or our scripting team, or all of us, when we were in the scripting role, when we wrote that script, and the graphics team, when they translated it, this is what it looked like. So there, if you see this, it looks like a fair. We are looking at it from little bit of height, and the camera is moving from left to right. Okay. If you look at it, there is this arrow. This arrow, it shows movement of camera. Okay, camera moving from left to right. And from there we come to these two people who are sitting together and they are talking. If you look at it carefully, we have actually gone from very far away. The camera was very far away in the first shot, and here it has come little closer. As we move ahead, the camera has come even further close. And when the third character comes, camera steps back. Now, what exactly is happening here is, we are trying to create meaning by putting pictures together. This is the basic, thing which is followed in filmmaking, is the grammar of filmmaking, so to say. There are shots, and there are different shots of different magnifications. There are different ways in which the camera moves. Here, like I said, the camera is moving from left to right. Okay. And when there's something very interesting happening, something that we want the viewers to pay attention to, the camera moves in close to the characters. So this is what we do in the storyboard stage. Now here, this one, just a little bit of back to character design very briefly. This person, if you see, he has been designed in a way that it makes you laugh. He will always be talking about, something. He'll make it look that he knows a lot of things, but he'll actually be talking about something very stupid. So we have tried to make him look in a way that he doesn't inspire confidence. On the other hand, there is this character who has been made in a way he's smart, he's sitting erect, when he gets down, he's standing very correctly, very nicely. So he has been designed to inspire confidence. The why I'm telling you all this is that all of this has to be done not when you're making an animation, but when we are walking, when we are moving ahead. We have to observe people, we have to think about their backstories and all of these things. And there, so more we observe, when we are actually working on a project, these things will come back to us. Okay, now let's see what this animation and this very first shot it looked like when it was made. So here I'm just going to play this animation, and here this will be without this will be on with a scratch voiceover which is not done by the actual artists. Here is what it looks like.
क्या सोच में पड़ा है हीरा? यहाँ तो एक से बढ़कर एक घोड़े हैं। देख ले अपनी पसंद का कोई एक। यही तो परेशानी है हसन भाई। घोड़े तो बहुत हैं, लेकिन मुझे अच्छे घोड़े की पहचान नहीं है। क्या कहा? अच्छे घोड़े की पहचान? अब चाचा से बेहतर ये कौन बता सकता है? क्यों, सही कहा ना हसन मियाँ? क्या सोच
Okay, so this was the first draft, so to say. Then when we put it together, and when we add music and sound effects and everything, and it is recorded by an actual actor, this is what it looks like.
क्या सोच में पड़ा है हीरा? यहाँ तो एक से बढ़कर एक घोड़े हैं। देख ले कोई अपनी पसंद का।
यही तो परेशानी है हसन भाई। घोड़े तो बहुत हैं, लेकिन मुझे अच्छे घोड़े की पहचान नहीं है।
क्या कहा? अच्छे घोड़े की पहचान? अब चाचा से बेहतर कौन बता सकता है? क्यों, सही कहा ना मैंने हसन मियाँ?
हीरा भाई, इनके चक्कर में मत पड़ना। ये बस नाम के ही होशियार हैं। गांव में इनके चर्चे तो तुमने सुने ही होंगे।
Okay, so did you notice you must have noticed the sound effects. You must have noticed how and the way of speaking of these characters. Like I told you that this character has been designed to make you laugh, to make you that he's been designed that the viewers don't learn from him, because he'll not be talking about the correct things. This is the wrong practices. So we have made him, we have exaggerated the funny parts of him. And also, you would have also noticed there is there's some background animation, and there was some background sound to it. Okay, I'll just, if you will excuse me very briefly, I think it has just hanged again. Just 1 second. So somebody has asked in the chat, very interesting question, how do you make these sketches? So my answer is very simple and very easy. I don't make those sketches. So thing is that, you see, there is like it's a team effort. You're not required to do everything, but you need to understand the mechanics of it. You need to understand what is required. You can always find people who will be, so somebody you would find who is very good at sketching. Okay, and but he may not know the pedagogy, he may not know what you're trying to teach. So your job as a teacher is to make sure that whatever you're trying to teach is what do you call it, what you're trying to teach is as per your requirement. So what is more important, like I always say, is to decide what you're wanting to show and work on it that way, rather than getting into the mechanics of it, rather than getting into the nitty-gritties of it, because that in any case it's a specialized profession. Okay, And then finally it is all mastered, and the final video, it looks like this. You've already seen it, so I'm not going to play it again. I'll just move on. And I wanted to tell you something also. Once again, I wanted to tell you something also very important before we move on. Just 1 second here. So next we'll be talking about how, what is the grammar of it. When we say grammar, uh, what we mean by grammar is, can anyone help you? Can anyone help us? What exactly is the grammar of filmmaking? Any inputs here? So grammar of filmmaking is, how those shots they come together. There are different types of shots, and there are different types of, different ways in which same thing can be photographed. So you have, I think, already been taught about, we you have discussed stop block animation, where we take lot of pictures and we play them next to each other. But it is important to understand how far we are shooting it from, because that is what conveys things. It is not just the content also, it is also from which angle, from how far, and how for example, we could show somebody from very far when somebody is talking, and we want to also talk about, we want to show their expressions. We would take this is called medium shot, ms. There's medium long shot, there's long shot, there's extra long shot when we look at somebody from very far. Then there's medium close shot, and then there's a big close up, and extreme close up, where we want to exaggerate somebody's expressions. These are things which are used in both videos as well as animations, in which also used in stop block animations also. So these are different types of, these are all standard terminology for shots. I would really, it will be nice if you could just, because these things, they really help us when you're working in a team, when you're trying to communicate somebody, it just helps us to be more precise. Then there are certain movements, you see in the very first shot that we saw, there was camera moving in the sky. Now, camera could be moving in different ways. It could be actually moving from left to right, or it could merely be turning on the same axis. So when it is turning in the same axis without really moving from left to right, it is called pan. The movement is called pan. So there's pan left and pan right. Okay. And then there is track, this crab left and crab right is when it is actually moving. Okay. I'll show you what I'm trying to say here is this. Supposing this is my camera, when I'm turning it like this is pan left, pan right. When I'm actually moving the camera from left to right, this is track or crab, as it is also called. Okay. Then one can also, go close to a character. This is called zoom in and zoom out, right? One can make the camera go up and down, that is pad up and pad down, and so on. And also then, there are different ways in which we can shoot the same character. We can look at the character from the eye level. So most of the time, 80-90% of the time, we should make sure that when we are shooting somebody, or whether it is an animation or a stop block animation or a video or anything, we should look at that character's eye. We should make sure that our camera is at the same height as that character, unless there's something in particular that we want to show. We want to make him look very, very scared. Then we might shoot the third one, which is the high. When we look at it from somebody from height, he seems small, he seems timid and scared. On the other hand, we want to make him look brave and bully kind of a thing, we might make the camera go a little low, right? These are the tricks that people use. So worm's eye, this is an exaggeration of low camera, but it really is not used that much. Then there's a bird's eye view. Bird's eye view is to look at the big picture, to look at what is happening, look at the scene together. So these are different types of, different types of shots that one can actually decide and one can take. Let's just, uh, is there any question before we can move on? Eye line is yes. That is a time when one has to actually make sure that one is looking at the person from the same height as that person, right? This is another example of a storyboard. Here, once again, what we've done is uh, there's a story of, this is a small somebody trying to say, this is so technical, we teachers, we need to take some animation movie making course. I can interpret the story of an animation movie but won't be able to make one. Of course you'll be able to make one, sir. It is not that difficult, but when there's a process that it will help if you follow that process. But of course this is slightly technical, it's not very technical, it is less technical actually than things that you might already be teaching in school. So it's just about getting used to it, that is all. So if you're finding it too technical, then we I was actually trying to teach you about to talk about the 3D animation pipeline also, but if you find it too technical, then let's move to a question answer session. Is there anything else that I can help you? Is there any questions that you have?
You can, participants can unmute themselves also to ask question. They can write question in the chat box also.
Yes,
Whatever.
please go ahead. Okay. uh, so okay, I'll just continuing with the same topic. So that is a suggestion. Can I just show you one more film and then we can just analyze that and then we can move to the 3D animation. This is a small 30-second video. This was made for
Excuse me, sir.
yeah,
Sorry to interrupt. We are left with around 15 minutes.
that is
So,
okay, ma'am. That is
okay.
fine.
Thank you.
Thank you. So let's just watch this 40-second video. This was made. This was an ad film. So as to basically to tell people not to go in for early marriage. And I'll tell you how we proceeded with making this. Okay. We'll just quickly analyze it. It will help you look at what are the possibilities. Right here.
आज बिरजू से मिला था। उसकी पहचान में एक लड़का है, शहर में बढ़ाई का काम कर रहा है, घर परिवार भी अच्छा है।
बाबा, आपको याद है जब आपने इस कमरे की छत डलवाई थी?
हाँ, और तू आते ही छत पर जाने की जिद करने लग गई थी।
बाबा,
ओह मेरी गुड़िया।
चलो ना बाबा, ऊपर चलते हैं।
नहीं बेटा, अभी छत कच्ची है, एक बार सूख जाए फिर तो जितना चाहे छत पे जाना।
बाबा, जब हर अच्छी चीज को बनने में वक्त लगता है, तो मेरी शादी में जल्दबाजी क्यों?
शादी हो तभी जब उम्र हो सही।
So what we are trying to tell here is that marriages should not be done early, and so there was some research that was done that is in the. Yes, sir. How can we draw this kind of picture which is shown in the video? See, these pictures they were drawn on paper, and there are softwares which are available which are which are slightly professional software. So this one was drawn on Photoshop and Illustrator. These are the softwares it was used, but they are not the only softwares that you can use. These are the industry standard softwares, but there are a lot of other softwares also that are used. For example, you can use you can so these are some of the softwares that you can use for making free animation. These are free softwares which can you can maybe note them down. uh, there is OpenShot video editor. I don't know if you got a chance to learn it. This is a free software that is available. You can learn it. There is DaVinci Resolve. DaVinci is a very interesting software. This is the best thing about it is industry standard. It is very, very professional, very, very powerful. And the best thing about it is that it is totally free. You can actually download it from their website if you just look for it. It is called Da Vinci. This is after Leonardo da Vinci, the famous scientist. So Da Vinci Resolve, you can download it. Only thing is that there is a specific hardware that if you need that, then you have to pay them. Otherwise, the software is free. Then there's Adobe Premiere Rush. Adobe Premiere Rush is another, this is a free software. Yes, this is a trial version, that is correct. But this is equally good. You can use it to make, basic things. And then there is Blender. Color correction. So you want to learn color correction is a slightly more technical topic. I could have done it, but we are a little short of time there. But maybe uh, you, yes, you have learned about OpenShot editor. Yes. Then very quickly I'll tell you. These are also there are some color correct. Yes, DaVinci Resolve is used for color correction. That is so right, but it is also used as an editor. It's a very powerful editor also, and it is used for color correction as well as for editing. So you can use it for editing also. Yeah. And now here are some websites, which will give you free free resources that can be downloaded, and you can animate them using OpenShot editor that you have learned. FreePic gives you some interesting free images, about 7-8 images every day. After that, you have to then log in, and then you can download some more. And they also have some very good images which are paid. It is if you have a budget for a project, you can probably go in for that, but otherwise their free collection is also very good. It's called FreePic. If you can just find it on Google, this is very good. Then there is Pexels also gives you a lot of images that can be downloaded. You are legally required to give credit to the person who created those images in your in whatever animation that you make. As long as you're doing that legally, you can use any resource from Pexels. Then there is Pixabay. They give some free images every day. And PNG Tree. Here I would quickly just tell you about how many of you know what is difference between JPEG and PNG? What is a PNG? Does anybody know what is PNG? So we are short of time. I'll come straight to the point. So any image, you see any image which is like this, any image which is like this, which is square or rectangle in shape, and there's a background also, there's a fair chance, there's a very big chance that it would be a JPEG. Okay, it will have a background also. Now if there's an image like this which doesn't have a background, which is like uh, just hang on, if I make it come to front, this is actually a JPEG, I'm so sorry. But so actually so if an image doesn't have a background, then it is transparent, and then that is a PNG. So when we have a PNG, so the thing is that you can download a lot of interesting PNGs from FreePic and from Pixabay and PNG Tree, and you can actually animate them. You can animate them to create small videos. You can in fact even take pictures of your own, and you can animate them using OpenShot. The idea is to keep in mind the basic principles of filmmaking that I've told you. How to make a storyboard, how to make videos, and how to when you're talking about animation, you should think about secondary animations. You should think about background animations. As long as you keep those things in mind, it is something very easy, and it is not complex, as complex as you might think. There's a production part of it is slightly complex, but the best part is that animation as a community, all of us, you to see, one way of looking at it is that we have been seeing animations, we've been seeing films for more than a century now as a community, so it has been with us. So it is there. What looks good, what looks right, doesn't look right, it is already there in our collective memory. So when you so best thing is that you need to, whenever you are making something, you have to keep revising it again and again, look at it very, very critically. And when you do that, you will see that how it can be changed and improved. You keep improving it, and this is really easy, it can be done, right? Any specific question that I can help you? Jungle Book and Alice in Wonderland were the first animations I've seen during childhood. Yes, sir. So Jungle Book was, in fact, apparently also the first animation that I saw, the first one. And that one, Jungle Book was actually, it was actually a classic animation. So there's a way of animation which is made classic animation, where one actually draws a lot of those images, and one actually shoots them in front of a camera, something like a flip book. It used to be done lot like some time back. Now it is not done anymore. Now we can animate parts of the picture individually, but earlier the entire picture used to be made. And imagine there were 25, there's a we so we work on 25 fps, right? 25 frames per second. So for creating 1 second of animation, there was 25 images were made. uh so you need tutorial blender tutorial. It needs more time. It's difficult to cover it here, but let me also assure you that you can just download Blender, start using it. And the best benefit of all these courses is not to use them to learn any software. Softwares are there, softwares are just a starting point. But let me assure you that within 2 years, every software that you have learned would have at least two new versions. Everything that you have learned would become outdated. So what is more important is to learn the basic concepts on how those softwares are used, what all are the possibilities of those softwares. And when you do that, then those are the things that will stay with you always, whether it is in animation, whether it is in films, whether it is in videos, or sound. All of these things, everything will get outdated. So best part is to learn this. If you need to build a character, what are the apps that is needed in a simple way? So if you can just draw a character on a piece of paper, and using any software, any paid or free software, if you can just get rid of of its background, it can be animated using OpenShot. OpenShot is something you can start with. OpenShot, just learn it very, very, learn it by heart, and there are a lot of things that you can do, right? So starting with it might be little hard, but I would really suggest you to just get started. Just start doing and create something nice and show it to the CIT team. Take your time. In the next couple of days, show them something really interesting, and uh, just go ahead, and you will also enjoy. And your students will also thank you for that. Right? So with that, CIT team, can we close the session with that? Anything else anybody would like to add? Ma'am Nidhi, is there anything we can? Is there
Yes,
a
sir.
so can we close the session? Is there anything else that we want to that I can help them with, or what is the next
Sir,
thing?
I would like to ask participants if any other question. They are participating in between, but still, do they have any question? Like
How much time are we left with?
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Great. So let's have an open session. Anything, please.
Okay, so attendance link is already shared. I'll reshare. Don't worry about it. Sir, if you have any query, you can ask sir regarding animation and whatever you have learned right now. Is there any query? One of the participants has asked, can we make animation video?
Yes, of course. Please go ahead and make it. So use OpenShot. Take take out go to FreePic. Take out images from there. Take out some PNGs. Take some take their pictures. Use them in OpenShot, and there are interesting ways in which you can put it together. Start with making very basic infographic based animations. With every animation, the second animation will become easier to make, and uh, you just need to get started. It's really easy, right?
Rest of the participants feel free to ask anything if you wish to. So one of the participant has found this session very useful and is showing gratitude for answering all their queries. And they are hoping that this session will help them to inculcate many new things for the students.
That's really wonderful, and this was really an interesting session for us also, and
There
interacting
is,
with you also was really, it helped us understand. Uh,
so sorry, sir. There is one more question from one of the participants. That is there any app which is available for creating animation?
so in fact, there are a lot of them. Even something like PowerPoint can be used for making animation, just on the very very basic level. But OpenShot that you have learned, it's a powerful thing. It is basic yet powerful. There are a lot of things that one can do with it. Blender is another one. Blender, I would really request you all to download Blender. Try doing things with it. It is uh, you might find it slightly complex in the beginning, but there are there are long tutorials available. Plutagon is another very easy one. Somebody has just suggested. So all of these things are already available, and lot of some more interesting apps will be shared in the coming days with you. So like I've said that the basic principles of it, the basic principles of animation, try to absorb them and keep them with you always, and they will be helpful, because all the apps that you will learn, there'll be new apps coming, there'll be new technology coming, all of them will become very very basic and very very kids, primary kids will be using them. So whatever we'll be learning today, next 5 years everyone will be using them. So rather than spending time on so just learn basic apps, but you don't need great apps to do great things. You need only one only needs great ideas, right? So that is what the basic takeaway should be, right?
Indeed, sir. That's the most important thing which is required in creating any kind of resource. That if we have ideas, we can create resources and we can create effective resources. So, okay, so sir has answered almost all the questions, and the time is also about to over. So I would like to thank Mr. Ayush Nagpal for giving us such an informative session, and definitely all the participants will use these resources, will create resources using the apps which you have suggested and the process you have explained to all of us. So thanks once again, Mr. Ayush Nagpal.
Thank you,
And
everyone. And